Good morning.
Hi, Bob.
So welcome to today's virtual gathering of the Unitarian Universalist Meeting House in Springfield, Vermont. We are a caring community, happy to have you all with us. I'm Bob Allman, one of the trustees. Stay with us and enjoy today's service. There'll be an opportunity at the end for guests to introduce themselves and for people to share joys and concerns.
Sharon has our chalice and our bell today. The words for our chalice lighting are from Dr. Frederick Eichenkoter. He says, people of different races are God wrapped in different color packages. People of different races are God wrapped in different packages. Come into this place of peace and let its silence heal your spirit. Come into this place of memory and let our stories warm your soul. Come into this place of prophecy and power and let our collective vision change your heart. Welcome to our time of worship. Assalamu alaikum, Brother Ahmad. So glad you're with us. Would you be kind enough to lead us in the call to prayer?
Inshallah.
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله These words are the Muslim call to prayer, and I will do a translation, inshallah. Allahu Akbar is God is greater, God is greater. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. I bear witness that there is no God but the one God. Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. I bear witness that Muhammad is the Prophet of God. Hayya ala salah. Come to prayer, come to prayer. Hayya ala al-falah. Come to success, come to success. There is no God but the one God. And God is greater, God is greater.
Thank you so much, Ahmad. That's a perfect opening for what we are here to do today. May we have success. May our hearts and minds be opened. We are here to explore, learn about, and celebrate race amity. Throughout the history of the country and the history of the world, there have been people who have been mean, who have looked at people who are different than them and been horrible, disrespectful. And at the very same time, there are so many people throughout history in our country who have treated people who are different than them with love, with kindness, with respect. There are these two traditions, a tradition of hate and a tradition of friendship or amity. And we are here today to celebrate and hold up and learn from the powerful tradition of amity, of love, of friendship. May we be successful, as Ahmad just called us in this call to prayer. In doing this, we're building a new way. We're in a state in our country of confusion, of sometimes it feels like it's so big and complicated, maybe even hopeless, but it is not. We can build this new way, this way of peace, amity. So join us in singing our opening song, Building a New Way, which Julaine will lead us.
We are building a new way. We are building a new way. We are building a new way, feeling stronger every day. We are building a new day. We are working to be free. We are working to be free. We are working to be free of hate and greed and jealousy. We are working to be free. We can feel our every need. We can feel our every need. We can feel our every need. Start with love, that is the seed. We can feel our every need. Peace and freedom is our cry. Peace and freedom is our cry. Peace and freedom is our cry. Without these, this world will die. Peace and freedom is our cry. We are building a new way. We are building a new way. We are building a new way, feeling stronger every day. We are building a new day.
So, building a new way, here we are. I want to tell you a story. So my friend and brother on the spiritual path, Ahmad, is here with us today. And it's a story of how he and I met. And he tells me it was 10 years ago. I thought it was 8. So he found a picture of us together from 10 years ago. So it must be 10. About 10 years ago, there was a Christian minister who was threatening to burn the Quran. And I have a copy of the Quran right here in front of me. This is the holy book of the Muslim people. And it is seen as sacred. And to threaten to burn it it's just an affront to everyone. So when I heard about this, I just thought, we got to do something here. I was raised in a household, I feel very lucky, because in the household that I was raised in, we were a raised Amity family, I would say. I didn't think of it that way, but I do now. there were not mean things said about people who were different. That was just, it was not the way we were. And my grandmother was that way, and both of my parents. And not only that, it's also, we were brought up with the idea that if you see someone who needs help, help them, no matter what, who they are, the Good Samaritan idea. So when I heard about this threat of burning the sacred book, the Quran, the Holy Quran, I thought, well, let's have an event and let's read the Quran. Let's open it and read it and learn from it instead of burning it. And I was working at the time. The event took place in Barrie, Vermont. Can you show us the picture? Deb, you've got the slideshow there. So there's a Universalist Church in Barrie, Vermont, and the event took place there. And I put some notices in the newspaper and just said, hey, come on. It was a Sunday afternoon after church. Let's get together and celebrate the beauty of the Islamic faith and read the Quran. And thank you, Deb. Yeah, you can take that one down. Thank you. And so, Ahmad, why don't you tell your part from there?
Yeah, so at the time, as Melon explained, there was a lot of tension in the United States about Islam in general, and this preacher, I suppose, in Florida was threatening to burn the Quran. A lot of angst in the community, and it happened to be around is at the end of the holy month of Ramadan. Ramadan is a holy month of attunement, as spiritual practice and fasting for Muslims, a very holy time of the year. And it was at the end of this where we end and celebrate the end of Ramadan by having a feast and a communal prayer at the mosque in Burlington, Vermont. And we had done so in this environment of hatred, I would call it, that was coming down up from Florida at that time. So the next morning, I kind of picked up the Burlington Free Press newspaper, if you remember what newspapers are, this paper thing that have.
Deb, could you highlight Ahmad, please? Put him in. Then people can see him. That's great. If you could do that. Thank you, Deb.
So I picked up the paper to see how what mention the Burlington Free Press had of the Muslim celebration of Eid. We have a fairly large Muslim community of several thousand in Burlington, and I surprised to see only a picture of a few Muslims outside the mosque celebrating, but there really was no article or anything like that in the paper. And I went to put the paper down, and below the article was another article. Below the picture was an article talking about Melon's "Let's read the Quran instead of burn it" service at the Barrie Church, and I thought this was rather interesting and timely. I read it and thought I should really attend this. I wasn't really sure what to expect when I got there. In this environment of everybody was really angry against Muslims in general for something purportedly done by a few Muslims, 10 years earlier. So I was a little bit apprehensive about going, and I wasn't sure if when I get there would be mass protests in front of the church and what would go on exactly. And I arrived at the church, and the picture that was just put up just a few minutes ago, and it was I walked in. When I walked in, I felt immediately lots of love and presence in the church at the UU in Barrie, and I was greeted by a young lady who offered me a bowl of dates. There was a date. She offered me a date from one of the bowls, and dates happen to be a very traditional part of the Islamic breaking of fast. We usually break fast with dates, and so dates had a very sweet meaning, sweet in a couple of senses. Literally sweet, but also sweet spiritually. So I happily took a date and took my seat. And I was just I didn't really speak to many people at that point. I was waiting for the service to begin. And Melon, you want to take it from there? Or should I continue to?
There were three of us: the minister from the Unitarian Church in Montpelier, myself, another minister, Jan, and we led a service. And I gave a sermon called "What I Love About Islam." Go ahead, Font.
And I was sitting in the church. This has been probably a second time I've been in the church within 10 years. The time before that was for a friend's wedding, about 10 years prior. So I don't go to Christian churches per se, but it was so I was in the church, and I heard Melon start her sermon, and she starts with La ilaha illallah, which means there is no God but the one God. And I heard these words, and tears started coming down my eyes immediately. I was so touched by the reverence that Reverend Kennedy spoke these words, and that she was saying them from her heart. I could, I sensed that. I sensed that she wasn't just reading the words or pronouncing them. But she actually felt it. And those words, La ilaha illallah, means that there is no God but the one God. Allah is an Arabic contraction, linguistically, it's an Arabic contraction of two words, the God. So when you put it together, it's Allah. So it's the God, which really signifies the unity. In different practices, could be the Godhead, if there are multiple. And Reverend Kennedy went on, continued with her sermon to describe various parts of Islam. She also, I think it was at the service, she illustrated the motions of prayer,
Mm-hmm.
and I was also very touched when Reverend Kennedy, when Mellon was cognizant and aware of which way to face during the prayer. We face mostly east, and Reverend Kennedy was, cognizant of that, and which made me also very aware of her attunement to through the motions of the prayer. And again, I couldn't believe my eyes and my ears, because I went into this environment, again this was this person down in Florida who was threatening to burn the Holy Quran. He had created such an uproar. It was such a national news event, and it was all over the place. And to see the contrast, of that in that environment, to see such love and reverence in a church in Barrie, Vermont, just touched me beyond words. And at this point, I think tears were just flowing uncontrollably down my cheeks, tears of joy, for just experiencing the love amongst in a sea of, I wouldn't say a sea, but in an environment of hatred, that love was shining through and overcoming all of that. It was a beautiful day.
And at the end of the service, I was aware that you were there, Ahmad. I caught your face. There were maybe 40 or so people there, in diverse. It was a Sunday afternoon, so people from different churches, different walks of life, not just Unitarian Universalists. Anybody was there. But I saw you, and so at the end, you stood up and you spoke, and you said that you were just so grateful to see your religion being represented in an accurate and beautiful way, and you were crying. And that in Barrie, the church is kind of the pulpit is kind of high up, and I came down from then, came down to you, and we stood in the aisle, and we held hands, and I just felt this really intense power coming through us as we stood there. It was incredible, and I think you felt it too.
I absolutely did feel it. I felt, that it was the power of love and unity and unification that was represented. It was powerful, strong, and I felt the love amongst all the attendees in the UU and the church at that point. I think at that point you may have opened it up for dialogue and discussion, questions, and in me I was thinking, is there going to be somebody here who's an instigator, who's going to start causing trouble? And no such thing happened. And it was all kind of my inner apprehension. I say outer apprehension, probably from outside. But everybody was so loving and so thoughtful and caring, made me feel comfortable, and collectively renounced the bigotry and hatred that was coming from the person.
And I had planned to do just that one event, to just, in response to the threat of burning the Quran, to hold that one event. And 10 years later, I guess, I'm still doing it. That moment with you, Ahmad, of just sitting the aisle and feeling the connection with you and the power of that, it just sort of galvanized me and set me on this trajectory of dedicating part of of my time to bringing this message of unity and helping people who are not Muslim understand the beauty of this tradition. So it was fate, I think, that you came that day and that we met, and it had a huge impact on me. And I'm so grateful that you were there and that you had the courage to stand up and speak. And thank you. Thank you so much.
And thank you for your courage to bring, awareness and knowledge and love, during this particular time. And like I shared, I don't know if I share the Sufi side of things. Well, how that kind of brought me.
I missed a few words there. Say it again.
So I will share also that how it turned around for me as well. After meeting Melon at the church, probably a year or so later, I came across a Sufi organization, the Sufi Order International at that time, and I had very strong interest in Sufism, which is universalist Islamic mysticism, so to speak. And I came across this Sufi Order International, and I became very interested. They were very close to Vermont and down in New York, so I became interested and ultimately became initiated in the order. And later to find out the connection. So that connection happened without any words, without any reference. So not that either one of us spoke of it at all, but it just happened.
Yeah.
The universe.
Just a great opening of the heart and connection. Deb, can you show the picture of that day, the three of us standing there? It's Ahmad, myself, and Reverend Jan. And Tal, because he's sitting down, but he's really tall. And your family's from Egypt. I've met your sister Diana, so we're different. Ahmad has dark hair, darker skin than mine. He's super tall. He's got really great long dreadlocks. Yes, the second picture there. That one. Yeah, there we go. There we are. So that's us and Barry that day. About 10 years ago. And but it didn't matter that our package was so different. That quote I read to you from Reverend Ike, that the different races are just God in different color packages. And you and I, Ahmad, felt that heart connection, which transcended everything else. It didn't matter. It just didn't matter that we're from different places. So thank you, Deb. Thank you so much. And so how about you? I feel really lucky, all of you. I was raised in a race Amity household. That's just how it was. And actually yesterday would have been my mother's birthday. She would be 98 if she were still alive. And I'm so grateful to my mother and father and my grandparents who modeled this for me. That it's just, it was not a question. It was just not a question in my household. And I'm so grateful. So how about you? What kind of house were you raised in? What kind of example did your parents or your grandparents, your aunts, your uncles, your friend give you? When you see someone who looks different than you, does your heart open in the possibility of a new friend who isn't a different color package? And if you were fortunate, grew up in a race Amity household, wonderful. And if you weren't, it's okay. It's okay. If you were brought up in a house where you were told by your parents or other people, oh, people with different colors, stay away from, oh, they're bad, whatever, be mean. You can learn to be different. You can learn. You can learn the truth that we are all one. The truth that each of us is just God in a different shape, color, package. That's how it is. Yeah. So thank you, Ahmad, for sharing that children's story time with me, or the story for ages. And we have another song, Break Not the Circle. This is a song to help us become these kind of people that we want to be grace, amity people, to be loving to everyone. So go for it, Julaine. Thank you, Julaine and the Virtual Choir. And now our affirmation. Here are the words of the affirmation, and I love it because this affirmation was written in the 1930s by the minister of the Barry Universalist Church, where you and I met, Ahmad, that picture that Deb showed at first. So the minister there, L. Griswold Williams was his name, wrote this. And we say every week, so join me. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, to serve the needs of all beings, to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with the divine. Thus do we covenant with each other and with the source of our being. And the image behind it, thank you, Jillian, for that. That's the windows at the church in Springfield, Vermont, in the springtime. And so hopefully we'll be back there before too long. So to continue the story, we're on a journey here with the Springfield Meeting House, and I'll share with you one of my favorite quotes. It's he drew a circle that shut me out, heretic rebel, a thing to flout. But love and I had the wit to win. We drew a circle that took him in. That's by a Universalist also. Edwin Markham is his name, the guy who wrote that. So I have an image on the wall. We worked with this before. I'm bringing it back around, this image and this idea. So there's a circle, and we're in it, supposedly. And there's an other out there who's different, who doesn't matter. Different because they have different color skin or different religion or different whatever. And who is that other for you? That's the question that I've asked us each to explore in these next several months. Who is that other? And I'm challenging each of us to draw the circle wider and bring that other in and turn it into sisters and brothers. That's our job. That's our work. And I find this work of race amity so helpful here. That there is no one who is not your brother and your sister. It isn't. Life isn't. That's not how it is. We are one. We are all united. We know this ecologically. We're on one planet. The air you breathe, it comes from the trees. You're one with the trees. The planet you're standing on, we are one. So William Smitty Smith, Dr. William Smitty Smith from Boston, came up with this idea. It came through him, a gift. He's a Baha'i, and that's his religious base, and very much this inspiration came as a connection with his religious foundation. That to recognize, yes, there's a tradition of racial hatred, and at the very same time, there is a tradition of race amity, of people who draw the circle wider and always have, and people who fight for the rights of people who are being othered. This is part of our heritage. And when we hear these stories, it can strengthen us. we absolutely need to hear the stories of the abuse, of the oppression, of the injustice. And at the same time, to hear the stories of celebration, of friendship across races that has changed the face of the world. So would you show us the picture of Smitty, Deb? Put that one up there. So this is the guy who came up with this idea of race amity. And I was giving that same sermon, which after Ahmad and I met, I went in on this world, all around the United States. So and I met Smitty. He came one day when I was preaching in Acton, Mass, and he's the founder of the National Center for Race Amity. And there's it's raceamity.org if you want to check it out. They have a conference around Thanksgiving every year. And he is just an outstanding man. And he at the time when we met, he was working on the film. It's out now. Some of us saw it last week. The Springfield Library hosted a showing of it, and they're going to do it again. So keep posted with the Springfield Meeting House, and you'll see an opportunity to see this film again. And it's just really a remarkable film that tells stories that most of us have never heard of, really significant people and friendships that have existed alongside the racial injustice. There's a little town in the 1600s across from Jamestown, very close by. It was called Northampton, where blacks and whites lived together. They intermarried. They did business together. And Smitty found the records on all of this, did the research, and just presented so many uplifting stories in our history, and stories between Native Americans and whites who were actually respectful and practiced race amity. So there's so much to celebrate and to learn from. Thanks, Deb. And what kind of a interesting thing that happened. Ahmad, was it? Could you highlight both of us again, Deb, Ahmad and me? I think it was a year and a half or so ago. You sent me a message on Facebook that was from your aunt, I think. You want to tell us about that?
Yeah. So my most of my family, all of my family, really are in Egypt. And we have a little WhatsApp group chat of the family. It's about 30 members from my family, cousins, aunts, uncles, and they post jokes, they post all kinds of stuff, in this group. And one day, one of my aunts, she posted a link to a YouTube video, and with kind of, she put a comment in there. She's like, "How wonderful is it that Islam is being treated with reverence and respect, and encouraged everybody in the group to watch this video." So I clicked on the video, and lo and behold, it was Melon. It was, out of so, and I had never spoken to any of my family about this. And it all just kind of just came around, and so I've got Melon in the Berry Church. I've got Melon coming from my family in Egypt. And it was, again, it's one of these. There's no such thing as coincidence. I think it was that divine cyber communications, if there's such a thing.
Yeah, and so can you bring up that website, Deb? What has happened? So I have preached a sermon on what I love about Islam dozens and dozens of times all around the world, and it got translated into Arabic and was posted on a website out of Egypt.
I think it has like 1.5 million or more views, I think, at this point.
Yeah, it was also translated into Turkish. So the one that's translated into Arabic, I think it has like I've forgotten what. Together between the one in Turkey and the one in Arabic, and it's I've gone viral, folks, in the positive sense. So this tape of me preaching. Yeah, so this is the one from Wasid. Yeah, and so there's the Arabic translation of me speaking, and yeah, between all the different sites, and it's over 1.5 million people have viewed this now, and mostly Muslims, which I just found really, really fascinating. Thanks, Deb. Yep. So that is actually in Atlanta, the church in Atlanta. I was preaching down there. So this one had 444. Yeah.
And I think if I may, I think it's very important that this message, like you said, is being viewed by Muslims. It's not that Muslims need to be educated about the religion, but it's very positive for Muslims to see a non-Muslim speaking of their religion with respect and reverence, because it counteracts all the negativity that is being bombarded. So it's the positive side, bringing that more to the light. So.
And when it went viral, and I emailed him like, huh? What? Because my audience for that was American non-Muslims, and it certainly has reached some American non-Muslims, but where it really hit was in the Muslim world. And so I get fan mail from all over the world now. Deb is constantly forwarding me things. I got one the other day that was from a woman from Basra, in Turkey, and she said something like, how did she say it? That I feel like you see my heart, or something like that. I don't remember the exact wording. And when I was talking with you, Ahmad, to try to understand why is this hitting Muslims so much, and when I think of Race Amity, it helps me understand that. And when we last week, when we met last week here, we talked about the need that we have as humans to shift our consciousness when we are in a very narrow kind of consciousness. And we can look at this in terms of in a spiritual way, in terms of spiritual levels of development, but you can also look at it in terms of brain waves and what's going on in the brain. And neuroscientists are now studying this. We need a new consciousness. There's a consciousness which is sort of beta wave of the brain, which is sort of very much in this we against the other, this sort of combative, or it can be fight or flight, or just a very narrow way of thinking. And then there's brain waves that are kind of slower and more open and a little bit more balanced, which is alpha brain waves. And then there's theta, theta, which is really expensive. In sleep, you're in theta. In meditation, you're in theta. In prayer, you're in theta. If you're in nature and feeling completely connected, you're in theta. So when we're in that open space of connecting with source, with God, with love, with unity, then we can transcend the supposed barriers so easily. And I think what in trying to understand why that video went viral, the Muslims who were viewing it and feeling seen and heard and respected, it was an opening of the heart, an opening of, not the combative of, oh, what's wrong, with Muslims and why do they do that? It wasn't any of that, or it wasn't even the, well, let me justify to you why Muslims aren't so bad. It was just an opening of the heart of, here is the beauty. Here is the oneness. Here's the light. Here's the love. And when Muslims viewed this, we just connected heart to heart, So I get email messages on my Facebook. I have Muslim friends of every shape, color, and size from all around the world, and get gifts and supportive comments from Muslims from around the world. So, and to have an opportunity to connect heart to heart at that profound level with people who seem different on the surface, but it's just a different color package of God. That's all it is. And it feels so wonderful. It just feels so wonderful to make that connection. So how about you? Do you have these stories in your own life? These stories of connection where when you get into that heart space, it transcends. And there's so much hope there. There's so much hope there. We can argue, we can get into beta and argue forever, but Rumi says it best, I think. Out beyond ideas of wrongdoing and right doing, there's a field. I'll meet you there. When the soul lies down in that grass, the world is too big to talk about. Words, ideas, even the words each other don't make sense anymore. Out beyond the ideas of wrongdoing and right doing, there's a field. I'll meet you there. And so, Ahmad, I feel like you and I entered that field when we stood there in the church in Barrie. And I feel like when Muslims around the world are watching this video of me, it does that. It helps people find that field that is beyond words, that is the field of the heart connection. So do you want to add anything else, Ahmad?
Like when I look at the circle that you drew earlier, inclusiveness of brothers and sisters, reminds me of Islamic concept of ummah, which is community. So ummah in Arabic, the root word comes from mother. So in Arabic is mother, and ummah is community. So it has the nurturing quality of motherhood, being, that's at its root. And in Islamic culture, ummah, it transcends culture, it transcends nationality. It's an all-inclusive community of lovers of God, of worshipers of the one God, of Allah in Arabic. So that concept really is all-inclusive. In Islam, some of the ceremonies, I think, or that kind of exhibit the oneness, is, for example, is prayer, the communal prayer. In communal prayer, with the exception of separation of men and women, and we can talk about that, but other than that, it's really everybody standing on the same line, equal footing, all bowing before God, equals in the eye of God, regardless of wealth and social status and so on. Another kind of ceremony would be the Hajj, the pilgrimage to Mecca. In the pilgrimage to Mecca, even the clothing, you cannot distinguish rich from poor. Everybody is dressed in the same simple garb, which is basically, more or less just very simple cover with no stitches, but everybody's equal. Nobody's wearing jewelry, nobody's wearing Rolex watches, or you can't really tell who's who, and everybody is serving and glorifying God equally, all in front of God. So that's part of the kind of the Islamic concept of ummah, which the drawing that you did there, Melon, really reminded me of that. There's nobody excluded from the circle. Everybody's included, regardless of your race, nationality, social status, all of that. We're all brothers and sisters in service of God.
Yes. Smitty, the originator of the National Center for Race Amity, he says this: to the extent that we can promote and encourage cross-racial friendships, we can create lasting bonds, human bonds between people. This is what we need to make these connections. And Cornel West, some of you know Cornel West. He's a great contemporary African-American theologian. He says, race amity is an idea whose time has come. So here we are. The time has come to celebrate, cultivate race amity in our own lives. And you just never know how far your act of kindness, your act of friendship might extend. It might surprise you, the ripples that go out. So let's sing again. Let's sing again. Actually, let's do a short prayer and then sing. Spirit of life, Allah, the source, Great Mother, Gaia, Yahweh. Thank you so much for the gift of this day, this edging towards spring day. And thank you for the gift of our gathered community here. Thank you for this time outside of the busyness of our lives. Thank you for the gift of Smitty Smith and the beautiful concept of race amity that can raise our hearts and our minds to grand visions. And thank you for the friendships among all people, regardless of what color packages we're in. Thank you for those who have had the courage and the strength and the fun to share with other people who appear different. May we learn from their histories and their stories and be with each one of us. Let our heart be softened. Let us descend into that depth of spaciousness where we know our oneness, where we remember that we are ultimately, essentially brothers and sisters. Be with each one of us as we find ways to live this message. May we take the hope and the challenge here and find ways to bring it out into the world. Be with us, Great Spirit. Thank you for the gift of this day. May it be so, blessed be. Amen. And our song is to the tune of Finlandia, We Would Be One.
We would be one, as now we join in singing our hymn of love, to pledge ourselves anew to that high cause of greater understanding of who we are and what in us is true. We would be one in living for each other, to show to all a new community. We would be one in building for tomorrow a nobler world than we have known today. We would be one in searching for that healing, which binds our hearts and points us on our way. As when we pledged ourselves to greatest service, with love and justice, strive to make us free.
You have found friendship here, treasure it. If you have found challenge here, and I hope you have, go and sit quietly with whatever's stirring in your heart. And if you have found hope here, bring it out into our bruised and beautiful world that needs you, a beacon of race amity. May it be so. Blessed be. Amen.